So for a quick overview of today's agenda, we'll introduce today's topic and the sources for today's info before we do dig into the recruiting. And then we'll continue with various ideas we have to talk through for improving traditional methods and employing new ideas for recruiting. Before we do finish up, I'll provide a summary and some information around the turnaround times for our staffing processes, and then we'll close out the session with time for questions and further discussion of today's topics. So I do want to pause here just for a quick second to point out a really helpful tool in the staffing process for anyone who might not know of its existence. The Hiring Manager Guidebook is a really fantastic resource that can be used to learn how the staffing process works for you and your organization in collaboration with MACC. It describes the staffing process from start to finish with best practices, tips, and training on each of the main steps. So even if you already have the guidebook, we will share it again after today's session, and then you can always find it on the Human Resources area of Connector. With that said, today we are going to focus on giving you some recruiting strategies to help ensure you stay competitive in today's market. And we'll start by just talking about where this information and where these pointers are coming from, because sources are important. Between the MACC HR staff, we have over 60 years of combined experience that includes handling staffing-related issues and processes. When we know hiring can be a struggle and has been especially tricky over the last few years, and we're also bringing forward expertise from an international talent acquisition conference to make sure we have the latest strategies, best practices, and so on. And then some of the information you'll hear today was gathered from the workforce strategy consultants you see here, and they were brought to us by the Minnesota Department of Economic and Employment Development, or DEED. If you haven't heard of DEED, it is the state's primary economic development agency, and it does an amazing job of supporting job seekers and employers both in producing jobs and improving the quality of the state's workforce. DEED also oversees CareerForce, which is an awesome platform that helps job seekers with all aspects of job hunting and provides that help statewide. So everything we're covering today was specifically included because we have it from multiple sources who agree that these are the best ways to generate quality applicants, or some of them. So let's talk about generating those quality applicants. And I'd like to start with what the staffing team already does to help support your recruiting. So MACC staffing helps with posting your roles to many different job boards. Firstly, there are the sites you see here, as well as paid posting options on some of these sites we use, like MCN, the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, and Indeed. And there are many more posting sites, paid or otherwise, that we're happy to look into for your roles. And besides posting them, finding new sites for posting your roles, the staffing team and your HR partner are always more than happy to help brainstorm or research other ways to get more applicants for a particular posting. And from the standpoint of a uniquely positioned HR team that is technically separate from your organization, we do believe that the bulk of your active recruiting should come from those who are most familiar with your organization and your roles and can speak to them at any given point. So in terms of active and traditional recruiting, what does traditional mean? Traditional recruitment relies on tried and true methods like posting the same job to multiple job boards and praying the right candidate applies. And this does work well for certain roles, but we all know there are times when it's not enough. And here are some of the tried and true things you all are doing already. Investing in your brand, which sounds like a marketing scheme, but the reality is that being recognizable is important. Your logo, color choices, and the general look of your communications are part of telling your story. Using inclusive language in job descriptions and communications with a focus on mission and vision. These are very important in making a human connection, especially these days when we have to make so many connections in virtual ways. Investing in partnerships that offer professional objectivity. This is what MACC is here to do, bring expertise in areas like compensation analysis, so you know you're paying competitively. Investing in tech and systems, like working with UKG in tandem with MACC for easy applicant tracking and onboarding. And focusing on the candidate experience, which One example of is our UKG automated application receipt email. So that's an email it sends out every time someone applies, acknowledging it was received, and someone will contact them soon. And we hope that makes the contact with each applicant at least occurring at the very beginning, and then hopefully once more to continue focusing on the candidate experience. And we continue with that with touching base throughout the onboarding process and providing surveys once they have started with you. And these are all things recommended by Ashley Anderson and Brian Schneider, who are both recruiters with Credit Karma. And if you're not already doing so, they also suggest having a referral bonus program, which could be anything from a small monetary award to a raffle ticket that enters an employee for a chance to win a large prize at the end of the year, or introducing candidates to leadership, if not in person, then just by name, which gives them the sense that every position in the organization is valued and part of the greater team. So now let's talk through what I've mentioned a couple times in active recruiting. Active recruitment is the process of actively seeking out candidates who are looking for job opportunities. And before we get to some new ideas we have there, let's talk through some active versions of those traditional recruitment strategies you're already employing. And the first of which is to develop a recruitment plan or strategy with a visual so you can see it, which sounds simple, but it's really effective in helping you visualize it and take action on what you can see to do. Another idea is rewriting your job posts for keywords. So think what words folks are searching for when they just hop into Google and look for, places hiring teachers. You can consider words that are related to your industry, related to that job, related to other companies in that industry. Be creative with it. And also not making your job postings too lengthy. Keep them sweet and to the point. And if possible, consider having your hiring manager's contact info on there. Of course, depending on your organization or your need for confidentiality at your organization, it might not be possible, but we do think it's a great idea to provide transparency and enable your applicants to connect with you. And ideas we have that enhance job fair experiences include coming out from behind the booth at job fairs, networking with other applicants and the other folks at the booths doing the career fairs like employers. You never know who is looking, and you'll often get applicants from the other employers at these events. And having confidence in your knowledge of your own role, your available roles, and other roles at your organization is a huge factor to being able to speak to any applicant and various needs for that applicant, whether it's that role you have open or possibly a different one in the future. And if you can't make it to a job fair, you can still drop off items to help get your name out there, your organization name. You can drop off your posting flyers, those PDFs we send you whenever you post a job, or things with your logo on them, like pens or coasters. And then you can also host recruitment events. So connect with universities. You can find programs or resources through them, or just give them some of your flyers or info to source younger talent through them. Or get your local community together for your own recruitment event. One cool thing that Grubhub did when they partnered with Built-in at one point was to host an event where candidates came to its office to casually mingle with company leaders and have a few beers, which was really a cool way to take the pressure off those recruiting events and remove the stress and formalities that come with them. And it allowed the candidates to relax and have a more personalized experience. And the casual nature of these types of meetups can be applied to virtual meetups as well. So, and I do apologize, I'm kind of zooming through today's info because we have so many ideas we want to share with you, but please feel free to stop and interrupt me if you have questions, or let me know through chat. So now that we have covered improvements to those traditional methods, let's talk about another already employed method, which is an area that's always evolving and requiring us to evolve: social media. So if you do want to incorporate some social media use into your recruiting, there are some important things to consider at the outset. For one, who would be the keeper of the keys, so to speak? Who would have the access and the control over it? How much time do you want them to devote to social media recruiting? And making sure you have clear expectations and agreed upon protocols for what content to use or what might be off limits, or how to handle situations like negative comments. And if you are one of those people using the organization's social media, here are some tips that will help your efforts be most effective. So using tags, which are basically search terms, are really helpful. So for example, a candidate might use the tag social work to search for organizations that have used that tag and then read up on them to see if they're hiring. Also, Canva is a great tool for creating images and designs that make a job notice into something more eye-catching. And Canva is a free tool online you can find just by Googling Canva. And you can use those images you create on there to post to your news feed where you can link the flyer or your job board. There's also influencer marketing, which is not a free option, but something to look into, something that can help you reach beyond your followers by advertising with accounts who have followers you may like that would be interested in your organization. And then some other ideas we found for increasing your social media presence include creating social channels. You can create specific recruiting social media accounts that clearly target job candidates, and you can post content solely about your organization's culture, recruiting events, employee spotlights, and possible open roles. And then you can do fun things like featuring employee highlights or team outings or celebrating any accomplishments across the board. And you can use platforms like Instagram and TikTok to share these stories. And you can stay connected with your industry's candidates by writing regular blog articles on projects your team is working on. This could help candidates better understand what they could be working on if they join your team, and it reassures them that your team is an industry leader. Okay, and then I'd like to talk through some ideas that are related to social media and that they can all be employed through that channel or other online platforms. So these ideas are all related to brand awareness or making sure everyone knows your organization's name. To get your organization's name out there, there are tons of things you can try. Some ideas we've come across recently are a brief 30-second recruitment video that could easily be repurposed on social media, the company website, or even as a TV ad. And a recruitment video doesn't have to fit into rigid guidelines. One recent video by SodaStream incorporated information about the company while including people from multiple departments of different nationalities and languages. It was simple but neat. You could record a company podcast, which could include employee testimonials that allow candidates to really hear directly from potential colleagues about what it's like to work at your company. And you could write a company blog, like we talked about before, an employee spotlight blog that could cover personal interests, hobbies, passion projects, and everything in between, or team blogs that cover what projects you're working on. And then as far as offline presence and brand awareness, you can create and distribute more employer branding content through things like ads on metro buses. LifeSpark did this in 2023, and they said they saw a lot of great response to it and tons of folks just calling in to say they saw the ad. Really surprising, but effective way. Making coasters with your organization's logo to drop off at local restaurants or bars. You can put your organization's QR code to the job board or to your website on there. LifeSpark also did that, and they added a tic-tac-toe game on the back of their coaster because why not? And in all of these avenues, you can research what communities your workforce is coming from, and the staffing team can help you with that. And then you can advertise to those target audiences in those areas with ads, campaigns, billboards, anything to put on major traffic routes coming towards your organization or your area, your city. One thing one of our organizations did a little while back was send postcards out to the community their workforce was coming from, and saw a lot of great response to that. You never know what little thing might reach a larger audience than you think. or a large enough audience to bring you in one awesome candidate. And then part of that raising brand awareness for your organization, I think, includes building a talent network. This means being in a recruiting mindset even when you may not be hiring, so that you're always tapping into more candidate pools for future hiring. And some of the ways you can reach out and connect with your community at any time include job alerts. So this is something UKG already does for us that folks can sign up for. There's a little link at the bottom of a job board that says sign up for job alerts, and then folks will get emails whenever that organization has posted a new job. And then as far as regret letters go, we do send them out via email on your behalf, but if you want to consider when you can calling your candidates to let them know they didn't get the role, let them know they might not be a good fit now, but some coaching could help them become a good fit later. And if you have any tips or ideas, the coaching then and there could be a great assistance. And it never hurts to build a good reputation when you're doing those personalized regret letters. That person will talk really well of your organization, even though they didn't get the role. And then another idea is to attend industry-related events and local hangouts. One idea that a group of women in Chicago had was to create a working group. It was a group called, or is a group called Chicago Women Developers. And it's where professional women developers get together to host regular hack nights. And that's virtually in response to the pandemic. But that's as a means of getting to know the less experienced and very experienced developers in their community. And I thought that was a really cool idea to have spaces like that as a way for recruiters to connect with candidates who have passions and hobbies that align with the requirements of an open role. So again, they might not be looking, but you're tapping into and getting your name out there for people who will or could very well be great candidates when they're ready in the future. And another aspect of active recruiting is building a pipeline similar to a talent network. The phrase building a pipeline is a helpfully visual way of describing the active recruiting process of finding candidates before they've become candidates. And to build a pipeline is to reach out to as many people as you can that could become possible applicants for your roles by going to where they are. And many workforce consultants and recruiters will tell you that one of the best ways to build a pipeline is to just get out there. And that's mirrored by Stacey Gordon of Remote Work in her Road to Inclusion, Building Relationships with Underrepresented Groups, which offers a great idea tip for us here. An idea is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility as a reminder. She points out that if so much relies on networking, we cannot use the excuse that there isn't diversity in our pipelines. We need to look at our pipelines, not the pool of applicants. So in other words, if our applicant pools are not diverse, we need to be looking at all reasons why that might be and doing something about it. And again, part of this is always being in a recruiting mindset. You might not be hiring for a current role now, but you might be in the future. So talk to folks in that role at other organizations and companies and let them know what a great organization yours is, what benefits you offer, and so on. Think of where the people you're trying to hire are, where they work or go to school, what they do, where they like to hang out, and go to those places. Put up ads and posters in those places for your open jobs or just for your organization, and talk about your organization in those places often. Go to the coffee shop near your organization with your coworker to talk about what you've been doing at your organization. There's just so many small and big ways you can be always building a pipeline. So building your pipeline is one way to do something active in recruiting, but what does that really mean? So if you can identify your candidates, who your candidates are, and who you want them to be, you can identify where they might be coming from. And then imagine you're building a pipe directly from where those candidates come right to you. And in particular, think of community spaces and school programs where you can lay the foundation and make that pathway to employment easy. So if you're hiring for a teacher, go to early education prep programs. Or maybe you're hiring for an entry level or labor position. Approach a high school or trade school. Some of the ways you can build those pipelines are firstly contacting a program director or operations manager who can help you with space or scheduling and talk about what you'd like to do. You could do a presentation about your organization to get an audience excited about your mission and plant the idea that they'll want to apply now or in the future. Or you could set up a table and hand out flyers or ask for a flyer to be posted in a public space there. Obviously, this kind of relationship building takes more time than some of the other things that we've talked about today. But once those pipelines are built, the path for candidates to come to you is wide open. And another large path we all know of for finding candidates is online. An important aspect of attracting candidates is maintaining your organization's online presence. And some of the ideas we have for you in this area include optimizing your career page. So not just your UKG job board, but you should definitely include a link to it there. But your actual career page on your website is a great resource to promote open roles, share content, and provide information on the company's mission, culture, and benefits. You can showcase the pros of working at your organization. You can provide frequently asked questions right on your careers page, like what's the hiring process like? How long after an application can you expect to hear back from someone? Those kinds of things. And if you haven't searched your company on popular inquiry sites like Quora and Reddit, you might want to consider it, not only to see if anyone's talking about your company, but to connect with candidates and establish a relationship by providing candid answers and responding to those reviews and responses you see. And before we do move on to our next idea, I do want to mention a few platforms that relate directly to business or career development. So topping that list is LinkedIn and Glassdoor, which I'm sure you're familiar with or heard of. LinkedIn and Glassdoor both do require a fee for job postings, but you can search for candidates on there and send them messages with the link to your posting or your job board. And then there are search engines and other sites where reviews can be left and responded to, like Yelp, Indeed, Google, many, many more. And Google also provides a paid service in which you can make your job posting or organization come up when candidates search certain keywords. And these keywords could be job titles, industry names or related words, or even other company or organization names. One example that I like is Uber and Lyft, and they are famous for using Google keywords to make their own company names come up in search results when folks search for the other company's name. So if you search Uber jobs, Lyft jobs will come up and vice versa, which is a very clever marketing scheme, I think. Okay, and then I would like to touch on a few of these points real quick. I know we're coming close to time, but one more aspect to help fill the gaps in reaching a very wide audience is niche hiring, or what we like to call niche hiring. And this is thinking of gaps to fill in your audience. Where are those smaller groups that you might not have reached that could really help you bring in more candidates? The first one up here that we have listed here is veterans. You can do research about how to become a veteran-friendly employer. There's sources like military.com and SHRM, Senior Human Resources Management. And there's lots of organizations or websites that will help you become a veteran-friendly employer. You can also recruit mothers and caregivers. There's a long-standing stigma against people, specifically women, who have a several-year gap on their resumes due to being a caregiver for children, elderly relatives, or people with disabilities. And externship programs are one way to help professionals who need a stepping stone between their former and future career. And recruiting candidates with disabilities. You can see how you're doing in welcoming people of all mental and physical abilities by comparing your company or your organization with the National Disability Equality Index. I have a link to that I'll send you all in the follow-up. But to make improvements, you can research ways you can make your workplace more accommodating, starting with the recruitment process. You can also make your careers page more accessible by partnering with organizations like the US Department of Labor, Employer Assistance and Resource Network on Disability Inclusion, and SHRM. And additionally, there are a number of job boards specifically for people with disabilities, like ability jobs. And then there are smaller ways that you can think of, or like smaller markets that you could reach out to, like newspaper ads. You would probably assume not a ton of people are reading them anymore, but there are some out there, and you never know if they might be somebody who is a great candidate for your organization and reads the newspaper. Or things like going to rural areas and putting up posters in the post office where lots of folks go there for their PO boxes. Any little thing like that could make a big difference in your recruiting. And then I'm going to send this slide out to you, or send this out to you all. This is our last slide that we don't quite have time to go over, but I do want to point out that the workforce in Minnesota is shrinking and expected to continue shrinking through 2033. And people are not having as many kids as they used to. So one really awesome idea I thought that came out of DEED as well was looking at the population with a criminal record. There are 1 in 3 adults in the US with a criminal record, and that can be a very stigmatized population and a very large population that is not being tapped into. And there are a lot of social disparities in the justice system that we know it might not be completely fair that all of these people are incarcerated to the extent that they are. But overall, incarceration rates have been falling by 20% since 2007. And the ethical case for hiring and working with this demographic coming out of incarceration is a huge challenge. And according to the ACLU, 75% of formerly incarcerated people are unemployed in their first year of release, which is a huge group of people unable to find work that we could be tapping into. I have more statistics here and in our speaker notes that I'll share with you all afterwards. But I'd like to do a quick summary before we have to move on, and remember or remind you all to not lose sight of your long-term goals when you're in a time crunch or hiring a lot or urgently, and to keep what works. So keep all those tried and true methods you're already doing and that are getting you the quality applicants you do have, like posting to the high traffic job boards, making applying easy, and engaging with your applicants. And of course, improving traditional methods by being active, engaging with your job fair attendees and employers, and increasing your brand awareness in as many ways as you can think of. And then adding new strategies like using social media in new ways, building a pipeline in new areas, increasing your online presence, and tapping into those gaps in your audience with niche hiring. And then we have our staffing process timelines. Just a reminder that we ask for 48 hours after a job has been submitted to be posted. We ask for 24 hours after an offer letter has been approved to be sent out. And then we ask for 10 days for the onboarding process from the start date of new hire. So 10 days from the offer letter to the start date.